Good day, and welcome back to the Life License Qualification Program video series presented by Business Career College. My name is Jason Watt, and in this series we're going to be working through the structure of individual disability insurance. Now, in order to understand disability insurance, we first have to look at sources of income that can be generated when somebody is disabled. So we're going to look at a potential disability and where income might come from during the period of disability. And we could have any of several sources of income during this time. We know in Canada that our government provides us with some disability benefits. We're going to look into these in more detail later on, but it's possible to generate disability benefits by virtue of having contributed to Canada Pension Plan. It's also possible to generate disability benefits from the Employment Insurance Program, although Employment Insurance doesn't call these disability benefits. They refer to accident benefits or sickness benefits. Really fulfills the same purpose as disability benefits. We also can have benefits from a workers' compensation program. Workers' Compensation Board in most provinces, or if you happen to be in Ontario, the Workplace Safety Information Board. So each of these sources of government benefits might be there for somebody who becomes disabled. Now, that's fine, but there are some limitations. We'll discuss limitations in greater detail later on, but just briefly, Canada Pension Plan. Well, Canada Pension Plan has some fairly significant limitations as to how much disability benefit it will generate. Notably, you have to have a disability here that is severe and prolonged. That is so severe that you're likely never to work again in your whole life. If you do happen to qualify under that very restrictive definition of disability, then the problem we're going to have is that the amount is not significant. The most you'll get from Canada Pension Plan is in the neighborhood of $900 a month of disability benefits. So if $900 a month is enough to live on, Canada Pension Plan will provide what you need. Employment insurance. Employment insurance provides benefits for lots of different reasons related to loss of employment. I referred already to accident benefits and sickness benefits. EI, accident benefits and sickness benefits, would be capped at about $440 per week to a maximum of 55% of your earned income. That's a taxable benefit, as would CPP. Another limitation to EI is the time frame. It's only going to pay out in most cases for about 15 weeks. And we say in this course that EI does have a 15-week elimination period. Sorry, a 15-week benefit period with a 2-week elimination period at the beginning. And then workers' compensation and WSIB. Now these vary significantly from province to province, but we find some fairly standard commonalities amongst the different provinces. The biggest limitation to these programs is for a benefit to be paid, the loss has to have happened in the workplace. There are some limitations beyond that, but really what it comes down to is, were you doing the job you were supposed to be doing in the manner that you were supposed to be doing it during the time that you were supposed to be doing it. And if all of those things are true, then WSIB or WCB can pay out benefits. And the benefit here can be fairly significant, somewhere between 75 and 90% of your after-tax income. So generally it's designed to replace your income, comes pretty close to it, and it can pay out for a good long time, and it pays all kinds of other supplemental benefits that vary from province to province. So WCB, WSIB can be pretty good, except that the big limitation here is that the injury has to happen under those approved conditions. So those are our government benefits. Now, we can have also benefits sponsored by an employer. Now we'll talk about this in great detail in a later series of videos. For the time being, it's important to recognize that an employer-sponsored group insurance plan can provide disability benefits in the form of short-term benefits and long-term benefits. These benefits can be fairly attractive, and for most people who become disabled, this is what they're going to rely on. We said here we're going to have some financial limitations with CPP and EI, and WCB, WSIB only applies for the workplace, and there are some problems here as well for self-employed folks, for example. Whereas with group disability, we have here an employer-sponsored plan where an employer and an employee both contribute to a plan, and if the employee becomes disabled, we now have disability benefits paid. This can have a limitation, though, in that this only works, obviously, if your employer maintains a group plan. So this can be hard for a self-employed person to acquire, for example, an entrepreneur or contractor. Those types of relationships, we find group disability is very difficult to acquire. Also, group disability tends to have a limitation based on the evidence collected. Group disability will tend to provide about 2/3 of your income up to around $2,000 a month without having provided medical evidence. Some plans give you the opportunity to get additional coverage beyond that amount, but it's something we have to watch for. So group disability can be very good. It's a worthwhile product in most cases. However, it does have a limitation that it does count on your employer to maintain that group benefits plan, and the amount may not replace all the income you were used to achieving. However, these do provide the basis for disability income. Now there are some other possibilities. You might have a rental property, for example, that would generate what we would call passive income. And I'm going to discuss passive and active income more in a few minutes. You might have some savings you could draw on, for example. There are any of a number of sources of savings that can be accessed. When we look at universal life insurance later on, for example, we'll see that it's possible to access the values in your universal life insurance policy if you happen to have those values to help manage a disability. I would suggest, though, that for many Canadians, the ability to access savings is quite limited, and the ability to draw or to count on passive income is quite limited. So we see that we do have some sources of disability income here, but it may not be enough. So if we have a gap that's going to be left, if somebody does become disabled, we need a way to fill that gap. The way we're going to fill that gap is how we're going to spend our next few videos together. We're going to look very specifically at an individual disability policy, sometimes called an income replacement policy. And this individual disability policy, or sometimes called also an individual disability income policy, this individual disability policy is sold on an individual basis, underwritten on an individual basis. Claims are submitted for the individual, and the individual then owns, manages, pays premiums on the policy. Now, going forward, what we're going to look at is a 6-step process that we're going to employ in order to put an individual disability policy in place.